In this slidecast, we're going to look at procurement methods. Now remember, we're looking at procurement methods that are available to the client when he starts a project. So the main types of procurement methods are these. So we've got design, bid, build, or DBB, which is what we've been looking at up until now. That's the traditional way of progressing a project, of procuring a project. Then we've got design and build, project management and alliance. We're going to look at each one of those in turn. First of all, let's look at the design, bid, build, the DBB. This is the one that we've been looking at up until now. So we've got the client he commissions a consultant, they get into a consultancy contract, they develop it, the design, they go out to tender, they hire a contractor, the contractor builds the project works. So that's a design, bid, build. And likewise, the contractor may hire a subcontractor to provide additional resources or to provide extra specialized resources as well, and suppliers to supply the material. Likewise, the consultant will hire a sub-consultant if he needs some specialist work done. So this should be familiar to you. You've got inception, feasibility, design, tendering, construction, and commissioning. That's the engineering project process we looked at in earlier slidecasts. Notice that the feasibility and design are design, the tendering is bid, and the construction and commissioning is build. So design, bid, build, hence the name. You can see that the client comes in right at the start and is there furthermore when he starts using it. The engineer starts in early and finishes when the project is commissioned and handed over to the contractor, to the client. And the contractor starts in usually about tendering, and he finishes at commissioning and handover as well. The next one we're going to look at is design and build, and notice that the client has a contract with just one organization with the contractor, design build contract, and like the name says, the contractor is responsible for both the design and the build. So he hires a consultant to do the design for him. So there's no contractual relationship between the consultant and the client. The contractual relationship is between the contractor and the consultant. So the consultant's hired to do the design. He might hire a sub-consultant if he needs some specialist design done, and likewise the contractor has his sub-consultants and suppliers as well. So the advantage of this is that the contractor can get the consultant to start on the detailed design, then he can start the construction while the consultant's finishing the detailed design. So it means that he can move it a bit quicker, and the client only has to deal with one organization. He's not trying to deal with a consultant and a contractor. The way it works is the client's there, the normal time starts at the beginning and he's there beyond it. Contractor starts in earlier and finishes at commissioning, and the consultant's only brought in there. So notice that this process is different. So you've got inception, feasibility as we heard before, but now there's only a concept design. So the design is just a concept. So the client may hire another consultant, might be another consultant there, and that consultant and the client sort of develop an idea of, this is what I want. I want a 4-lane highway, I want it to be this wide, I want it to have cycle lanes, I want it to, whatever you want. So you're giving them enough information that the contractors, the design build contractors, can actually have a good idea of what they're supposed to design and build. Then it goes to tendering and they put in a bid for it, or the client may decide to just negotiate with one. There's a lot more complexity to it because there's a lot less known about the design. And once the contractor is hired, there's design and construction. So once again, the contractor is getting the detailed design going, hopefully starting the construction a bit earlier than he would otherwise. And that's when he hires the consultant. And then commissioning, it's handed over to the client. Another one we're looking at is the project management model. Now remember, in a previous slidecast we looked at the role of the engineer, the consultant, being split into two parts. So normally a consultant will be the project manager and the designer. In this case, in this model, we split them out. So the client will normally first up hire a project manager, and they will work together to develop what they want from the other two parties. Then they'd hire a designer to do the design, to produce the contract documents. Then after that they'd hire a contractor to do the construction, and likewise the designer might hire a sub-consultant, the contractor might hire a subcontractor and suppliers. So the advantage of this is that the client is really only dealing with one person. While there is a contract here, this project manager does most of the legwork, most of the communication with each one of these parties here. So the client has very little to do, and he knows that there's one person here who's acting totally within his interest, trying to get the project completed to his satisfaction. And there's the process there. So inception, so it's much the same as a DBB project, except that there's the design, the project manager's involved much earlier on, and he's all the way through, and he'll just pull in the consultant, the design consultant as required, and the contractor as required as well. Now there's variation on the project management and the DBB models. It's sort of an add-on, if you like. In those two models, each one of those separate parties, the contractor, the engineer, the consultant, and the client, they're all separate organizations, and they will put their own interests ahead of the others. So if something happens that the contractor made a mistake, he might just try to keep it to himself rather than tell the others, because he thinks he's going to get into trouble. In fact, he will. So the partnering charter says we're all going to work together to achieve the goals of the project, and it relies on each one of these organizations acting like adults, acting honorably. And if something goes wrong, they will tell each other. There'll be no surprises. They communicate all the time. So if the contractor makes a mistake, he's going to say to the engineer, look, we made a mistake, and then everyone's going to work together to try to sort it out. And likewise, you've got the sub-consultants and all those sort of people there. They're not part of that agreement. So they all sign an agreement. The trouble with that is, if someone is not acting in the spirit of the charter, there's not much the other two can do about it. So there's no real strong legal mechanisms there to sort of stop them from misbehaving. Alliancing is much like partnering, except that each one of those parties now forms a company. So whether it's partnering, they agree to work together. In alliancing, they all form a separate company whose sole aim is to complete the project, to carry out the project. They are all shareholders in that company. If the company, the alliance, loses money on the project, then every one of the shareholders are going to lose money. If it makes money on the project, then each one of the shareholders is going to make money. So it's in everyone's interest to do the project well, so everyone will work together. If the contractor makes a mistake, it's in his interest to work with the consultant and the client to sort it out, and likewise with the consultant, likewise with everyone else. Oftentimes you'll have several contractors and several consultants. The thing about an alliance is it costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time to set up. So it's really only worth it when the project's value is hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. So those really big projects work really well with an alliance. Anything smaller than hundreds of millions is just too small for an alliance. It's just not worth doing. Now the alliance itself, remember it's an organization, is staffed by people from each one of these organizations. So the partner contracting organizations will take some of their staff, and those staff will be seconded. They'll be moved into the alliance, so they will be working for the alliance organization. That's who pays them. Same with the consultants, same with the clients. So they move everyone into the same office. The advantage of this is that when you're doing the design and stuff, the contractors are having an input to the consultants, to the design. That means you're getting a much more efficient design. Now there may be subcontractors, suppliers and sub-consultants. They're all hired by the alliance. They're not part of the alliance agreement, but they're hired by the alliance with the normal sort of agreements we had with the previous ones. The format of sort of the process is quite different from the other two processes. You got inception, the client decides he's going to build something, decides to form an alliance, and then the tendering is quite different from all the others. In this case, teams of consultants and contractors will team up, so they'll be able to produce all of the services that are required for the project. So if it's a tunnel, say, there will be consultants and contractors that are tunneling experts. There are guys that are mechanical that are able to provide the ventilation and stuff. So they need to team up, because usually no one organization is capable of doing everything. Then the client sort of selects one of those teams, and together they form an alliance. Now these alliances, for these sort of projects, these alliances can spend, or these people tendering can spend millions of dollars trying to win the alliance project, because they're worth so much money. Then there's the alliance formation, where people from each one of the partner organizations, from the contractor, from the consultants, from the client, they form one organization, and those people go and work for the alliance. Once they've done that, once they're all together, they do the preliminary design, which is totally different from the other ones. They do the design, they agree the budget, they agree the program after everyone is all on board. That means they're all working together to progress the project in the best way possible to achieve the project objectives in the most efficient way, and they're all agreeing that this is the way it's going to work. Now, having a contractor and consultant working together means that the skills of both organizations come to bear, and you're going to end up with the most efficient way of building the project works. Once they've agreed on what the budget, the program, and the design are, the detailed design starts up. And what normally happens is they'll start the detailed design, get enough work there to start the contractor. So the construction work starts quite soon on in the project. So the construction work will be happening, and the detailed design will be following along just ahead of it. Once it's all done, it's commissioned and signed off by the consenting authority, and then it's all complete. So as I mentioned, it's only really worth it for really big projects. It's a very effective way. It means you're developing the most effective way of doing the project, but it does take quite a lot of effort.